They didn't invite me to their wedding because I'm too simple, so I sold the land where they're going to build their house. Subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. My journey from doormat to dignity might just be the story you need today. The envelope wasn't there. Again, I checked the empty mailbox for the 10th time that week, my arthritic fingers gripping the cold metal door. There had to be a mistake. My neighbor Dorothy's excited voice still echoed in my head from her call an hour earlier. "Margaret, have you seen the wedding invitation yet? Such elegant paper, with those gold details. Your Robert certainly has exquisite taste." I'd mumbled something about the rural male being slow, hiding the tremor in my voice behind practiced cheerfulness. 73 years gives you plenty of time to perfect the art of disguising pain. In the hallway mirror, I studied my reflection. Gray hair pulled back in a simple bun, face weathered from decades working our Tennessee farm. "Too simple," I whispered, echoing words I'd overheard Robert say during his last visit 6 months ago. Words not meant for my ears. My old pickup had been in the shop for weeks, another reminder of things falling apart. The bus schedule showed one leaving for Nashville in 30 minutes. I grabbed my purse, the good one John had given me for our 40th anniversary before the cancer took him, and headed out. 2 hours later, I stood in the gleaming lobby of Wheeler and Associates, my son's law firm. The receptionist's perfectly sculpted eyebrows arched when I gave my name. "Mrs. Wheeler, do you have an appointment? I'm Robert Wheeler's mother." Her eyes widened. "Oh, one moment, please." I watched her whisper into the phone, her eyes darting toward me. The plush waiting area made my clean but worn clothes feel suddenly shabby. 10 minutes passed before Robert appeared, tension radiating from his tailored suit. "Mom, what are you doing here?" His voice held more alarm than welcome. "I needed to see you." I kept my voice steady. "Dorothy received her invitation to your wedding. Mine seems to be lost." He guided me to a conference room, checking his watch. "I have a client in 15 minutes. The room felt too cold, too sterile. Nothing like the warm kitchen where I'd taught him to make his father's favorite cornbread. "There's no invitation coming, Mom." His words fell between us like stones. "Vanessa and I decided the event will be very sophisticated. You wouldn't feel comfortable." "I see." My voice sounded distant, even to me. "It's at the Sinclair estate. Black tie, 400 guests, each detail another wall between us. Senators will be there. Vanessa's father has important connections, and your mother would embarrass you." That's not what I said, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. "When were you going to tell me?" He checked his watch again. "I've been meaning to call." I nodded slowly, a lifetime of accommodating others taking over. Then he added, almost casually, "We're finalizing plans for the property in Nashville, breaking ground next month for our new home." The property, our family land, purchased with my inheritance, land that legally still belonged to me. Something shifted inside me, a quiet awakening. I thought of John, of promises made, of the daughter-in-law I'd never meet, of a wedding I wasn't worthy to attend. "The property isn't yours yet, Robert." My voice came out stronger than I expected. His phone buzzed. "I have to take this, Mom. We'll talk soon." "Okay?" As he rushed me toward the elevator, I caught my reflection in the polished doors. For a fleeting moment, I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. She looked determined. The bus rumbled beneath me as Nashville's skyline receded. In my lap, I clutched my purse like it contained all I had left in the world. Maybe it did. Memory has a cruel way of reshuffling itself after betrayal. Suddenly, I could see the pattern I'd been too loyal to notice. Robert's visits growing shorter, calls more infrequent, gifts increasingly impersonal, the Christmas check instead of a visit, the birthday card signed by his assistant. When had my son become a stranger? After John died? Before? "Last stop, Oak Ridge," the driver called. Home. The farm John and I had nurtured for 45 years. As I walked the gravel path toward my house, I noticed someone working on the fence line. Frank Anderson, my neighbor of 20 years. "That north pasture post was leaning something awful," he said by way of greeting, hammering a nail with practiced precision. At 68, Frank's weathered hands still worked with the strength of a younger man. "You didn't have to do that, Frank." "Neighbors help neighbors." He wiped sweat from his brow. "Everything all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just visited Robert in Nashville." Something in my voice must have given me away. Frank set down his hammer. "Want to talk about it over some tea?" Inside my kitchen, I found comfort in the familiar ritual of boiling water and arranging cookies on the plate John had always favored. Frank settled at the table, his presence solid and undemanding. "My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 7 years," he said suddenly. "Married some hotshot politician and decided her roots weren't polished enough for her new life. I didn't know. Don't talk about it much." His fingers traced the wood grain of my table. "Have a grandson I've never met. Used to think it was just a phase." We sat in understanding silence, two people bound by similar wounds. "Robert's getting married," I finally said. "I found out from my neighbor who received an invitation. I won't be attending." Frank's eyes flashed with indignation. "That's not right. Apparently, I wouldn't be comfortable in such a sophisticated event." "Bull," Frank muttered. "What kind of man excludes his own mother?" His outrage on my behalf felt like a balm. For years, I'd made excuses for Robert's gradual distancing. He was busy, successful, building his life. Now, hearing my situation through Frank's ears, the rawness of it struck me anew. Later that evening, after Frank left, I found myself in the spare room where I stored John's things. Among his papers, a sealed envelope caught my eye, my name written in his familiar handwriting. With trembling fingers, I opened it. Inside was a birthday card, never delivered. John had died 3 days before my birthday 5 years ago. "Never forget your worth, Maggie," he'd written. "You built this life as much as I did. The Nashville property we bought with your family money is your legacy as much as mine. Don't let anyone tell you different, especially not our son." I clutched the card to my chest, feeling John's presence surround me. A tear slipped down my cheek, not of sorrow but of something else. Resolve, perhaps. Outside, darkness settled over the farm. Inside, something was waking up. The property tax notice arrived a week later, jarring me from my fog of hurt and confusion. I needed John's files. His office remained largely untouched since his death, a shrine of sorts, with his reading glasses still perched atop folders, as if he'd just stepped out. The metal filing cabinet in the corner had always been his domain. Now, it was my mission. Dust clouded the air as I pulled open drawers filled with farm records, equipment manuals, and tax returns. In the bottom drawer, a folder caught my eye. For Maggie, emergencies only. Secured with one of John's red rubber bands, my heart quickened. John had been methodical about everything, especially our affairs. Inside the folder lay not only the Nashville property deed, but also a leather-bound journal I'd never seen before. The first entry was dated 3 years before John's death. "Doctor confirmed today what I've suspected. My heart's giving out. Haven't told Maggie yet. Need to get our affairs in order first." I sank into John's chair, the weight of his secret pressing on me. Page after page detailed his declining health, his concerns about our farm, and, most disturbingly, his worries about Robert. "Robert came by today, asked again about the Nashville property, said he's thinking of building there someday." Something in his tone bothered me, like he's already counting on it being his. Further entries grew darker. "Patrick Murray called today, said Robert had been consulting different lawyers about accelerating the transfer of property from us, suggested Maggie might not be mentally capable of managing valuable assets. My son is planning to declare his own mother incompetent. I need to confront him, but these chest pains are getting worse." John never had that confrontation. His heart attack came 3 days later. The final pages held his explicit wishes. The Nashville property was bought with Maggie's family money. It should be sold after my death to secure her comfort in old age. Our son needs to make his own way, not depend on our sweat. I closed the journal, mind reeling. Robert hadn't just excluded me from his wedding. He'd been plotting to take control of my property by questioning my mental competence. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. A knock at the door startled me. Frank stood on my porch, holding a basket of fresh vegetables. "Thought you might like some of my tomatoes," he said, then noticed my expression. "Margaret, what's wrong?" I hesitated, then made a decision. "Frank, do you have time for a cup of coffee? I found something you should see." That evening, I couldn't sleep. John's journal lay on my nightstand, its revelations still burning in my mind. Robert's words from years of visits replayed with new meaning. His casual questions about my memory, his offers to help manage my finances, his suggestions that the farm might be too much for me. I'd mistaken concern for control. As dawn broke over the eastern pasture, I made my decision. No more invisible Margaret. No more doormat. I would reclaim what was mine, not just property, but dignity. When the barn roof partially collapsed during a thunderstorm the following week, I called Robert out of habit. "I'll send someone out," he promised. Distracted, no one came. 3 days later, Frank arrived with his nephew Sam, a skilled carpenter. "Heard you had some trouble with the barn," he said simply. For 3 days, we worked together. As hammer blows punctuated our conversation, I learned more about the man who'd been my neighbor for decades. Frank hadn't always been a farmer. He'd been a structural engineer before retiring to care for his family's land. "Designed bridges that'll outlast both of us," he said, without pretension. "Figured I'd rather grow things than build things in my later years." This revelation made me examine how I'd allowed others, even myself, to reduce my identity to just a farmer's widow. How many layers of ourselves do we hide to fit others' expectations? During lunch break on the 3rd day, I mentioned the Nashville property and my dilemma. Frank's eyebrows shot up. "Margaret, do you have any idea what land in Nashville is worth now? The city's exploded in the last decade. John bought it as an investment 30 years ago. 20 acres at the edge of town." "Edge of town, then, is prime real estate now," Frank said. "Development's been pushing out that way for years. That land could be worth millions." The sandwich in my hand suddenly felt weightless. Millions? I'd known the property had appreciated, but the scale stunned me. "You think that's why Robert's suddenly interested in building there?" I asked. "Possibly." Frank's eyes met mine. "Or why someone else might be." That evening, I called Caroline Fletcher, a school friend who'd become a successful real estate broker. "I need a professional evaluation and honest advice," I told her, "and absolute discretion." 2 days later, Caroline confirmed Frank's assessment. The property's value had skyrocketed, making it highly coveted by developers. "I did some checking in public records," she added hesitantly. "Sinclair Developments recently filed preliminary paperwork for a large-scale residential project in exactly your area. No specific property names mentioned, but the location matches." "Sinclair? As in Vanessa Sinclair's father?" "Yes." Caroline's voice softened. "They can't develop without your permission, Margaret, but they seem confident they'll get it." That same afternoon, I received an unexpected message from someone named Emma Sinclair, introducing herself as Vanessa's younger sister. "I found some old photos of Robert with family and got curious about you," she wrote. "Would you like help setting up social media to reconnect with old friends?" My instinct was to decline, but something stopped me. Knowledge was power, and I needed all I could gather. "I'd appreciate that," I replied. "Perhaps we could meet for coffee?" Later, gazing out at the land John and I had tended for decades, I felt something stirring beneath years of accommodation and self-doubt. Not anger exactly, something cooler, more focused. The property wasn't just land. It was the last thing John and I had built together, and someone was trying to take it from me. The cafe Emma suggested was 30 miles from Nashville, far enough to avoid accidental encounters with Robert or Vanessa. Smart girl. She arrived 5 minutes early. Nothing like the polished socialite I'd imagined. In her late 20s, Emma Sinclair dressed simply in jeans and a button-down shirt, her manner refreshingly direct. "I hope this wasn't too presumptuous," she said, sliding into the booth. "I've heard so much about Robert's family, but realized I'd never seen pictures of you until I found some old ones in his apartment while helping with wedding preparations." I studied her face, searching for signs of manipulation. Found none. "You're nothing like your sister," I observed. A flicker of something, pain, crossed her features. We took different paths. As Emma walked me through creating basic social media accounts, our conversation drifted toward family. She spoke of growing up in the Sinclair empire, the constant pressure to project perfection. 3 years ago, at my father's birthday gala, I defended my mother," she said suddenly, eyes fixed on her coffee. "She struggles with depression. Dad and Vanessa said she was embarrassing the family by declining to attend. I lost my temper. What happened? They humiliated me in front of everyone. Said I was just like her, emotional, unreliable." Her fingers traced the rim of her cup. "Dad made it clear that people who don't serve the family image have no place at the table, just like simple people have no place at Vanessa's perfect wedding." The parallel wasn't lost on either of us. "Where's your mother now?" I asked. "Private facility in Arizona. I visit monthly." "They never do." As our conversation continued, Emma inadvertently confirmed my suspicions when she mentioned the wedding timing. Dad's as excited about this development project as the wedding, says the timing couldn't be better, both finalizing in the same month. What development project? I kept my tone casual. Some residential complex. Dad's been obsessed with the location for years. She shrugged. Wedding talk is all about strategic alliances in my family. Not exactly romantic. On the drive home, I pondered this unexpected connection. Emma had reached out from genuine curiosity, unaware of her family's schemes involving my property. Her candor had given me invaluable insight and perhaps an ally. That night, I made 3 decisive calls. To Caroline, my real estate friend, to a lawyer she recommended named Diane Reynolds, who specialized in elder protection and property law, and to Frank, whose engineering background and unwavering support had become my anchor. I don't want to hurt my son, I explained to Diane, but I need to protect my future and my dignity. We'll make sure that happens, Mrs. Wheeler, she replied with quiet confidence. Over the next week, a plan began taking shape, not of revenge, but of reclamation, of becoming visible again. As the farm's evening shadows lengthened, I found myself standing straighter, speaking more firmly, thinking more clearly than I had in years. The woman Robert had dismissed as too simple for his wedding was disappearing. In her place stood someone altogether more formidable. The transformation happened in deliberate stages over the next 2 months. First came the legal groundwork. Diane helped me document everything. John's journal, the property deed, records of Robert's inquiries about my mental capacity, and the suspicious timing of the Sinclair development plans. Knowledge is leverage, Diane explained during our weekly meetings. We're not assuming malicious intent, but we're protecting your interests. Meanwhile, I enrolled in basic computer classes at the library. The kind instructor, barely older than Robert, showed remarkable patience as I fumbled through email setups and internet searches. From the simple profile Emma helped create, I expanded my digital footprint, reconnecting with old friends and researching my rights. Frank became a constant presence, helping with farm repairs I'd neglected for years. Under his guidance, I began transforming a section of my property into a small-scale organic specialty operation, applying traditional farming knowledge I'd accumulated over decades but never fully implemented. You have a gift with heirloom vegetables, Frank observed as we planted rare tomato varieties. People would pay premium prices for these. My wardrobe evolved too. Nothing flashy, but I replaced worn house dresses with simple, well-fitting clothes that reflected the woman I was becoming. Emma and I continued meeting regularly at out-of-the-way cafes. Our friendship deepened as we recognized in each other the same struggle for authenticity in families that valued appearance over substance. During one visit to the farm, Emma revealed something concerning. I work part-time in Dad's administrative department, she explained. Yesterday, while organizing his digital calendar, I accidentally saw an email mentioning a meeting with lawyers about damage control if MW proves problematic. MW? Margaret Wheeler, I assume. Her expression was troubled. I shouldn't be telling you this, but it doesn't feel right. I told her about the medical evaluations Diane had recommended. Comprehensive assessments to document my mental competence before anyone could question it. Smart move, Emma said. I could check which doctors my father typically uses in these situations, so you can avoid them. During this period, Robert called twice, once demanding why I hadn't responded to emails about property documents sent to an account I rarely checked, and again informing me he was sending an appraiser to evaluate the Nashville property for insurance purposes. I've already had it professionally appraised, I replied calmly. The silence that followed spoke volumes. We need to discuss the property in person, Robert, I added, with my attorney present. Attorney? What attorney? His voice rose. Mom, what are you doing? Taking care of my affairs. Isn't that what you wanted? After hanging up, I sat in John's office, surrounded by his books and the life we'd built. The confrontation I'd avoided was coming, but for the first time since his funeral, I didn't feel alone facing it. That evening, Frank and I sat on my newly repaired porch, watching fireflies dance across the darkening fields. You're different, he observed quietly. How so? You take up more space now, like you remember how big you really are. His words settled over me like a blessing. Yes, I was remembering, and so was everyone else about to. Robert arrived unannounced the following Saturday, his luxury car looking comically out of place in my gravel driveway. He stormed onto the porch where I was enjoying morning coffee. "What's this about an attorney?" he demanded. "And an appraisal?" I gestured to the chair across from me. "Good morning to you too, son. Would you like some coffee?" His eyes darted to Frank, who was finishing repairs on my porch railing. The presence of a witness visibly tempered Robert's approach. "Mom, I'm concerned about you," he said, lowering his voice. "These sudden decisions, it's not like you." "On the contrary," I replied evenly. "I've been making decisions for this farm for 50 years. The only difference is I'm now making them for myself, not others." Frank excused himself tactfully, though I knew he remained within earshot. "Smart man. I know about the Sinclair development plans for my property, Robert." His expression flickered between surprise and calculation. "How did you—" He caught himself. "It's not what you think, Mom. It's just a small project that would benefit everyone. Valley Heights Residences doesn't sound small." The color drained from his face. "Who told you that name?" Before he could recover, tires crunched on gravel. A sleek black car pulled up, and Vanessa Sinclair emerged, her designer outfit as out of place on my farm as a peacock in a chicken coop. "Robert, you just left in the middle of our meeting," she scolded, then noticed me. "Oh, hello, Mrs. Wheeler." Her gaze swept over my farmhouse. "How rustic. It has a certain charm, I suppose." "It's home," I said simply. Vanessa's attention darted around impatiently. "Robert, we need to go. Your father needs those contracts finalized for Valley Heights before the wedding." I widened my eyes in feigned innocence. "Valley Heights? Is that what you're calling the project on my property? The public records didn't mention a specific name." The look Vanessa shot Robert could have frozen hell itself. His answering glare revealed volumes about their relationship dynamic. "Mrs. Wheeler," Vanessa began in a condescending tone, "this development would actually benefit you tremendously. The property has been sitting unused for years, and it's still mine to decide what happens to it," I interrupted gently. Robert made one last attempt, his voice taking on the emotional manipulation I now recognized. "Mom, you always said this property would be my inheritance. I'm just trying to build our future." I met his gaze steadily. "Inheritance comes after death, Robert. I'm still very much alive." As they drove away, their heated argument visible even through tinted windows, Frank returned to the porch. "You handled that well," he said, admiration in his voice. "It's just beginning," I replied, watching dust settle in their wake. "But for the first time, I'm not afraid of what comes next." Thomas Sinclair arrived 3 days later in a chauffeur-driven car that probably cost more than my entire farm. Tall, immaculately dressed, with Vanessa's calculating eyes and a practiced smile, he embodied wealth and influence. "Mrs. Wheeler," he said, extending his hand, "I've been looking forward to meeting my future daughter-in-law's mother." "Have you?" I kept my tone pleasant. "Interesting, since I wasn't invited to the wedding." His smile didn't waver. "A regrettable miscommunication. May I come in?" Inside, Thomas declined my offer of coffee, instead producing a leather portfolio. "I understand there's been some confusion about the Nashville property development." "No confusion. It's my property, and I haven't agreed to any development." He chuckled, as if I'd said something charmingly naive. "Of course, but I believe once you see our proposal, you'll understand what an opportunity this represents." The portfolio contained glossy renderings of an upscale residential community. "Valley Heights will be the premier address in Nashville. We're prepared to offer you a generous participation stake." "What percentage?" I asked. His eyebrows lifted slightly at my directness. 8% of net profits. "For property worth millions? That's interesting math, Mr. Sinclair." His charm began slipping. "Mrs. Wheeler, development involves significant costs and risks, which is why developers normally pay fair market value up front when purchasing land," I countered. "Not lowball percentages." Thomas's demeanor cooled. "I have significant influence in Tennessee business circles. Fighting this development would be emotionally taxing for someone your age." I smiled genuinely for the first time. "Mr. Sinclair, I've spent my entire life working this land. I know when someone's trying to plant rotten potatoes." After his stormy departure, Emma called in a panic. "I overheard Dad, Robert, and Vanessa discussing hiring a doctor to declare you mentally incompetent." My stomach tightened, but John's preparation and Diane's foresight had prepared me for this. "When?" "They're meeting Dr. Simmons tomorrow. Dad used him before with my grandmother." Emma's voice shook. "They did the same thing to her years ago, taking control of property she owned." History repeating itself. I murmured. It's worse. My grandfather did the same to Dad, using him to expand the business and then discarding his dreams. The pain in Emma's voice was raw. It's a family pattern I can't bear watching again. I immediately called Diane, who accelerated our timeline for medical evaluations. It will take a few weeks to get all the specialists to see you, but we'll document everything thoroughly. Meanwhile, Caroline introduced me to executives from Bridgestone Development, a competing firm interested in the property for a project that included affordable housing and partial environmental preservation. We're not rushing decisions, I told them, but I appreciate understanding all my options. That night, I sat with Frank on the porch, sharing everything I'd learned. They won't stop, he warned gently. Men like Thomas Sinclair don't lose gracefully. Neither do farmers' widows, I replied, taking his weathered hand in mine. Especially ones who are remembering who they really are. His fingers tightened around mine, and in that quiet moment, another transformation began, one I hadn't anticipated, but welcomed with a heart opening to possibilities I'd thought long past. With only 5 weeks until the wedding, my strategy unfolded with precision. First, Diane sent formal notifications to Robert and Sinclair Developments, stating that no negotiations regarding the property would occur before a complete review of all options, a process that would likely extend beyond the wedding date. Caroline simultaneously initiated preliminary discussions with Bridgestone Development, making it clear I was exploring multiple options without commitment. At home, my transformation continued. I updated my hairstyle. Nothing dramatic, just fresher, more flattering. With Frank's expertise, we expanded the organic farming operation, focusing on heirloom vegetables and specialty crops that commanded premium prices at farmers' markets. Emma, using her administrative position at her father's company, kept me informed of Thomas's movements. During one farm visit, she revealed something disturbing. While organizing Dad's digital calendar, part of my job, I accidentally saw an email about a meeting with lawyers discussing containment strategies if MW proves difficult. Her voice trembled. They're preparing for a fight. This confirmed my suspicions about their true intentions. When I told Emma about my ongoing medical evaluations, she offered invaluable insight. Dad typically uses 3 specific doctors for these situations. I can give you their names so you can avoid them. During this period, Robert's approach evolved. Angry calls gave way to formal emails through attorneys, finally culminating in an apparently conciliatory visit where he offered forgiveness if I would stop complicating matters. I'm not seeking forgiveness, Robert, I replied calmly. I'm seeking respect. The medical evaluations proceeded systematically, neurological, psychological, cognitive assessments, all documenting my perfect mental competence. Each specialist's report became another brick in the wall protecting my autonomy. Frank and I spent evenings planning further farm improvements, our connection deepening beyond friendship into something neither of us had expected to find at our age. His engineering expertise complemented my agricultural knowledge, creating something stronger together than either of us had alone. John would approve, I told Frank one evening as we watched the sunset. He always said life was for living, right until the end. Wise man, Frank replied, his hand finding mine. Almost as wise as his wife. Emma's position grew increasingly precarious as she balanced loyalty to me with her complicated family ties. I'm thinking of leaving Sinclair Developments, she confessed during a farm visit. I can't be part of what they're doing, but I'm afraid of being cut off completely. Whatever you decide, I assured her, you'll always have a place here. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was offering Emma the unconditional acceptance Robert had sought from the Sinclairs, while he denied me the same from him. As the wedding date approached, Thomas made increasingly aggressive moves, sending lawyers with revised offers and thinly veiled threats. Each was met with Diane's calm but firm response. Mrs. Wheeler is still reviewing her options. My strength grew with each confrontation. The woman who had once faded into the background now stood firmly in the center of her own life, ready for whatever came next. 3 weeks before the wedding, with my medical evaluations officially confirming my full mental capacity, I requested a formal meeting with Robert, asking him to come alone to Diane's office. When he arrived, his expression hardened, seeing not just Diane and me, but also Caroline and 2 executives from Bridgestone Development. "What is this?" he demanded. "A business meeting," I replied with professional calm. "Please, sit down." For the next hour, I presented a detailed comparison between the unofficial Sinclair Developments proposal, based on information Emma had legitimately accessed, and Bridgestone's formal offer. The contrast was stark. Thomas's plan significantly undervalued the property, offering me a fraction of its worth, while Bridgestone offered full market value and more environmentally conscious terms. As a mother, I would keep this property for you, Robert, I explained, my voice steady. As a businesswoman, I cannot ignore a superior proposal. Color drained from his face when I revealed evidence of his previous inquiries about my mental capacity and the true Sinclair plans for the property. How did you find all this? He whispered. Your father kept records, I said simply, and I made new friends. Robert's eyes darted between the documents, his carefully constructed plan crumbling. What hurts most, I continued, isn't that you wanted the property, but that you didn't consider me worthy of knowing the truth, of being included in your life, or even in your wedding. His face reflected a storm of emotions, anger, shame, and finally, reluctant recognition that he had severely underestimated his mother. The Sinclairs aren't who you think they are, I added gently. You don't know them, he countered, but without conviction. I know Thomas offered me 8% of a development on land I own outright. What does that tell you about his business ethics? Something flickered in Robert's eyes. Doubt. Before he left, I handed him a small box containing John's wedding ring. Your father wanted you to have this when you found true love, I said quietly. I still hope one day you will. After Robert departed, the Bridgestone executives excused themselves, leaving me with Diane and Caroline. He'll fight this, Diane warned. Yes, I agreed, but now he's fighting with incomplete information. What do you mean? Caroline asked. I smiled. I didn't tell him I've declined both offers for now. This property represents more than money to me. I need time to decide its future, and mine. That evening, I called Emma to thank her for her help. Her voice sounded strained. Dad's furious about the meeting, she confessed. He's pressuring Robert to contest everything legally, threatening to withdraw financial support for the wedding. Are you all right? I asked, concerned for her position. I made a decision, she said firmly. I'm leaving Sinclair Developments. I can't be part of this anymore. As I hung up, I felt both pride in Emma's courage and sorrow for what Robert couldn't see, that he was sacrificing authentic relationships for a world built on manipulation and control. Frank found me on the porch, staring at the stars John and I used to name together. Penny for your thoughts, he said, settling beside me. I'm wondering if I did the right thing. For Robert, I mean. Frank considered this. You did the honest thing. Sometimes that's the only right there is. As darkness wrapped around us, my phone rang. Robert's name illuminated the screen. They were using me all along, weren't they? His voice sounded broken, vulnerable in a way I hadn't heard since he was a child. I think it's time we really talked, son, I said gently, not as adversaries, but as family. Rain pounded against my kitchen windows the morning Robert returned, not in his luxury car but in a rental, soaked and carrying only one suitcase. The wedding's off, he said simply, water dripping onto my freshly mopped floor. I handed him a towel without comment, putting on coffee as he slumped at the kitchen table where he'd done homework as a boy. Emma showed me documents she found, he continued, voice hollow, about how they were structuring the development. They were planning to funnel most profits through an offshore subsidiary company, one I wouldn't have been part of. I set a steaming mug before him, remembering how he'd always taken it. One sugar, splash of milk. When I confronted them, Vanessa didn't even deny it. She said the marriage was more a corporate alliance than a romance anyway. His hands trembled slightly. How did I not see what was right in front of me? We see what we want to, I said gently. I did the same with you for years. His eyes met mine, recognition dawning. Nishan, I was awful to you. You were lost, I corrected. There's a difference. We talked for hours, really talked, perhaps for the first time since John died. Robert revealed the pressure he'd felt to succeed, to prove himself worthy of the Sinclair world, how he'd gradually lost himself in pursuit of external validation. I have savings, he said, answering my unasked question about his future. I've been living modestly, saving for the dream house. Ironic, right? In the weeks that followed, our relationship entered unfamiliar territory, honest but fragile, the trust between us requiring careful rebuilding. Robert rented an apartment in the nearby town and began restructuring his legal career independent of Sinclair influence. Thomas attempted to sue both of us for business sabotage, but Diane's meticulous documentation and Emma's evidence resulted in a quick withdrawal when it became clear a public lawsuit would only expose questionable Sinclair business practices. Emma, having finally resigned from her father's company and cut financial ties with her family, accepted my offer to help manage the foundation I was establishing with part of the property proceeds, a scholarship program for young people studying sustainable agriculture. One evening, as Robert helped Frank and me with harvest preparations, he paused, looking out over the land. "I was so busy chasing what I thought I wanted," he said quietly, "that I never saw the value of what was already mine." Frank nodded sagely. "Most expensive education there is, learning that lesson." Robert's smile was tinged with sadness. "At least I learned it before it was too late." That night, after Robert left, I sat with Frank on the porch swing he'd built, his arm comfortably around my shoulders. "Diane called," I told him. "The Bridgestone contract is ready whenever I am." "And are you?" he asked. "Ready?" I considered this, watching fireflies emerge in the twilight. "Yes, but with modifications." "What kind?" "I want part of the proceeds to restore this farm completely, make it a model of sustainable agriculture, another portion for the foundation, and a trust for Robert with conditions, education for any children he might have, medical emergencies, or starting his own practice, never for speculation or Sinclair projects." Frank's eyes crinkled. "Protecting the future while honoring the past. John would be proud." "There's one more condition," I added, turning to face him. "I'd like a partner in this venture. Someone with engineering expertise and a good heart." His weathered hand found mine. "Reckon I might know someone who fits that description." As stars appeared above our heads, I felt John's presence, not as a ghost, but as the foundation that had made this new chapter possible. 6 months later, the farm bustled with activity I couldn't have imagined when I sat alone in my empty kitchen, devastated by a missing wedding invitation. Our organic operation had expanded, employing 4 local workers and gaining regional recognition for sustainable methods. The foundation had awarded its first scholarships to 3 promising students. The Nashville property transaction had closed, with terms far more favorable than anything the Sinclairs had proposed. Frank had become more than a friend and business partner. He was the unexpected second chance I never thought I'd find. His practical knowledge complemented mine. His quiet strength a different kind, but equally valuable as John's had been. Robert, working remotely as a legal consultant for small farmers and rural businesses, had found purpose that aligned his professional skills with more authentic values. His weekly visits became a highlight rather than a source of anxiety. On a gentle spring afternoon, Emma helped me with the foundation's accounting while we waited for our usual family dinner. Robert arrived, uncharacteristically nervous. "I've invited someone," he said. "I hope that's okay." Her name was Claire, a local teacher Robert had met while volunteering at the community school. Unlike Vanessa, she greeted me with genuine warmth, admiring the farm with authentic interest rather than forced politeness. During dinner, news about the Sinclairs emerged. Sinclair Developments faced federal investigations for questionable offshore practices. Vanessa had relocated to Europe, publicly distancing herself from her father's business to protect her own reputation. As I observed the table, Robert animatedly discussing a case with Claire, Emma laughing with Frank about some shared memory, the vibrant farm surrounding us, a profound peace settled over me. The betrayal that had nearly broken me had instead forced me to rebuild myself stronger, truer to the woman I'd always been beneath years of accommodation and invisibility. "Mom," Robert said, interrupting my thoughts, "I've been meaning to ask, how did you know? About the Sinclairs? About what would happen?" I smiled, thinking of John's journal, of Emma's courage, of Frank's steadfastness. "I remembered my worth," I said simply. Everything else followed from that. Later, after our guests departed, Frank and I walked the perimeter of the farm in the fading light, planning next season's expansion. "You know what I love about this land?" he mused. "It doesn't hold grudges. You can plant something new every season." "People can be the same way," I replied, thinking of Robert's gradual return to himself, of Emma's fresh start, of my own late-blooming courage. The farm that John and I had cultivated for decades continued nurturing new generations, not as a commodity to be sold, but as a legacy of integrity, honest work, and authentic love. As dusk settled over fields that had witnessed both my deepest pain and unexpected joy, I remembered John's words from his journal, "Never forget your worth, Maggie." Finally, I hadn't, and neither had anyone else. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.